Glyos. It's a universal peg and socket system letting independent toy producers create fun and inventive figures with totally interchangeable parts. This week, I'm going to tell you about some of my favorite producers of these toys. SpyMonkey Creations is an interesting beast in the Glyos universe. Brian and Jeremy have a love of the 80s style of action figures, especially He-Man and many of its copycat toy lines, which can be seen even in their earliest offerings. And no, I'm not talking about action figures. SpyMonkey started with ABS molded weapon sets like this one. These armory sets are in scale with Masters of the Universe classics and other such scaled toy lines, and use the Glyos system to great effect here to create different styles and even completely different weapons. But they expanded, of course, into an action figure line, the Weaponeers of Monkaa. Right off the bat, these are very different than the Glyos you've seen so far, and indeed, it's one of the most unusual toy styles in Glyos. They're meant to be warriors born from stone, growing from a simple golem with no allegiance to a warrior fighting for either the Giro or the Vilhain. Two faction names so cheesy, I have to love them. The main Giro are Imperius in red and Paladar in gray. Immediately they have the retro vibe to them with the permanent bend in the arms and the bulky proportions. Speaking of, these are actually a good bit bigger all around than most other Glyos figures, coming in at just over 4 inches on a standard build. On the other side of the field, there's the Vilhain, led by resident Skeletor impersonator Umbrius and Brutok. I know, very Constructicon of them, and I love it that way. They also come as golems, usually in the same colors as the main toys they drop with. You'll notice by now a few tricks Weaponeers use. The golem's arm cannon and club fists are the heads of Paladar and Brutok, while the named characters generally use golem heads as their fists. This is a pretty brilliant part reusage, letting every release have plenty of head options while still using as many parts as possible. Other part tricks involve the shin and forearm parts, which are all the same bits. You'll notice sockets halfway down these parts that can be used to imitate an elbow or knee bend. Not perfect, but it's a nice thought that adds to their display range and makes up for the usual weakness of Glyos' articulation. Speaking of, a standard Weaponeer build gets you 19 points of swivel articulation, and with the angles in several of these parts, the range works out pretty well. Standard Weaponeer releases are 31 components, including a pair of build-friendly switch pins hidden in the feet. That also includes, true to the name, weapons, adding an accessory level that a lot of Glyos figures lack. General releases come with a sword and a sickle, but DX releases also include an extra pack, the Close Combat Armory. It's got another sword and sickle, extra blades, handles in multiple shapes, switch pins, and these funky blocks that give you a lot of accessory building options. These get releases of their own from time to time, and bump DX releases up to 45 parts total. So, what constitutes a DX release? Weaponeers of Monkaa is a line that loves to experiment with paint applications. Meet Bloodlust Umbrius, molded in all black and decked out in a ton of red to make a really brutal appearance, topped off with some extra chrome ABS parts and a heavier build. That's another trait to Weaponeers. The characters are always around, just occasionally upgrading. Here's Lifespring Imperius in glow-in-the-dark deco that works brilliantly, along with Brutok Novum Viridium with circuit-esque tampagraphs. So how did these guys get their shiny new green paint jobs? You can find out! Something I love about SpyMonkey, every drop of toys comes with a new chapter in the ongoing story of these characters, how they evolve mentally and physically, relationships change, new threats emerge, and it gets some really nice artwork to go with it all. It really adds a sense of connection to these guys. Collectors like these for their old school spirit they represent. That's evident in their convention exclusives that take advantage of their aesthetic. Check out these guys, who have nothing to do with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, a registered trademark of Mattel Incorporated. I love how they can pull off the classic posture just by flipping some parts around. Other exclusives homage a strangely familiar non-Mattel toy line, and of all things, Kaneko Man. That's so random, I have to love it. They even made faux hardbacks for them too, which is an awesome touch to these guys. Newbies have a lot of reasons to like the Weaponeers of Monkaa. First off, they're pretty affordable for their size and part count, with basic golems usually running a mere $12. The 45-part DX Lava Strike Force figures are only $16 each, and with their amazing paint jobs and weapon counts, DX releases are a great entry point. The engineering to these also makes building very approachable, since most everything is flat surfaces and 45-degree angles. The builds might not be the most complex, but they're easy to just sit down and construct with. It's very unintimidating, which is a lot of fun on its own, and a great place to get started with the way the build system works. This was my first Glyos line, and continues to be one of my favorites, and the only one I own every release from. While every series has a loose narrative, Weaponeers of Monkaa is the most story-focused, and makes it really fun to follow. Which reminds me, if you do read the story, watch out for this one. He steals the show. Just don't call him son. Now that you've explored the world of the Monkaarians, let's give you some extra credit to go home with. Glyos toys start life just like any other toy. The designer sketches them out, sculpts a prototype, and uses a color sheet called a mechanical to tell the factory where paint applications go. Difference is, it's usually a single person doing all of this, with the occasional producer teaching others or helping out with the sculpting process. Then there's the interesting part. Regardless of the company, Spy Monkey, God Beast, any of them, if they're using the Glyos system, they're made in the same facility in China, overseen by O'Neill Design. That even goes for throwback projects like Power Lords. That helps keep the products consistent, since the whole point is any peg will fit any socket, meaning any toy can play well with any other toy. If only the toys you played with as a kid did that so well.